Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another video at my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be creating a card and envelope featuring these stamps from Picket Fence. So I really love these poppies. I thought they were really beautiful, and then that inspired me to create a red envelope. So like I said before, I'm using this Picket Fence stamp set. This is the Poppy Blossom stamp set. I'm going to be using just the really large image with the 5 blossoms and the stems. And this card is going to be 5 by 7. Now, when I was planning out this card, I thought it would be really beautiful to have the flowers stamped and embossed in gold embossing powder, and then have a gold frame around the stems of flowers. So I'm actually measuring off 3/4 of an inch from each edge and then penciling on a line. This is just going to be where the eventual gold line will be. And I did that so I could get the flowers positioned just perfectly on the paper while I stamp them. So I'm using some Arches cold pressed watercolor paper, and I've prepped that area with an anti-static powder tool because, like I mentioned before, I am going to be doing some gold embossing. So I'm placing my stamp in the center of that border area, and then I'm going to actually stamp this image twice. And I'm doing that for a few different reasons. For the main reason is that this watercolor paper is very textured, and I want to make sure I get a really, really good impression. And my second reason is that this stamp is really big. As you can see, I'm walking my fingertips over that entire area of the stamp. I just really wanted to make sure I got a really good impression. So after I stamped, I put on some gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. This is a nice gold color, and I'm making sure that I sprinkle on enough to cover the entire floral area. I'll just tap off the excess. Then I used a heat tool to heat set this until it was smooth and melted, and I want to make sure that I melt this just enough to get it so that it's shiny. I don't want to melt it any farther than that because then it could actually soak into the watercolor paper. So for the border around the outside edge, I had a couple different options. I thought about maybe painting it on, but then I thought, you know what, I'm going to try a Versamarker. I've had a Versamarker in my stash for a long time, but I've never had really good results when I try to write with it. So I thought, what about just drawing a border? And I could go over that border 2 or 3 times to make sure it's a really solid line. And this worked out so well. I really think I'm going to be using this trick more in the future because I really like how it looks, and it makes sure that that border matches the lines on the stamped image. I think it's kind of a really fun technique, and I don't know why I've never thought about using a Versamarker like this until now. So I did each of the 4 sides of the border, and I embossed after each line just to make sure that I had enough time to get that embossing powder on the line of Versamark before moving on. So I really love how that turned out. It looks really, really beautiful. So now I'm going to take my watercolor paper and tape it down to a board using some blue painter's tape. And this is so that as I paint it, that when it dries flat. I'm using my Magella Mission Gold watercolors today. I've been using these a lot recently because it's my favorite. And I'm going to really briefly walk you through my process of painting these flowers. I thought they turned out really beautiful, and you might wonder how I got from point A to point B. So I first did a layer of a very pale yellow, and then for each one of these flowers, I first wet the entire flower with water, and then I dropped in color at mostly the base of the flower, or right at the line where the petals change. So I'm putting in like a nice red shade right now, and I'm going to use this red shade on all of these flowers. So they're all going to have this yellow color and this red shade in common. And after I have all of those painted, then I'm going to bring in a couple different shades just to get a variation in color on all of these flowers. So I'm bringing in more of that red. And I really love how you can see how just adding that color in really makes the color spread, and having that water already on the flower. I think it's a really fun way to paint these. Now I did want to preserve a tiny bit of that yellow right at the tip of each petal. So when there comes to be a lot of red on these, I use my damp brush that's kind of been dried off a little bit to sop up some of that color and kind of pull it back down toward the base of the petals, because I don't want it to get too far up to the very top of the petal. All right, so now I'm going to switch up the colors that are on each one of these flowers. I'm going to make sure everything's dry, and I kept my heat tool moving so it didn't remelt that embossing powder. So for this first flower, I'm actually going to bring in more of a red violet shade, has more of a purple tone, and I'm going to be doing, I think 2 flowers in the purple tone, or maybe 3 actually, 3 flowers in the purple tone, and then I'm going to do 2 flowers with more of an orange red, a very true poppy color. I thought it would be really pretty to have these 2 variations in color. Now, I don't think poppies actually have more of this purple tone, not that I've seen when I've looked online. So those aren't really realistic, but this entire picture is unrealistic just because it's painted. So I'm trying to get past that. They don't need to be real. So dropping in some of that purple, and you can tell that just by having more of the yellow showing on this bottom bloom, that it almost looks like a completely different color palette compared to that second from the top flower that has the purple shade on it. So now I'm going to bring in that orange red poppy shade, and this is like a true poppy color. I think it's the most perfect red shade. Now, I had someone ask me recently, how do you get a true red in watercolor? Because everything turns pink. And my answer was this: when you're going for a true red, work in layers, because just the nature of watercolor, in order to get that paint moving, it has to have water, and water dilutes red to a pink shade. So if you really want to have some intense red, really build up the color like I've done here. I basically have 2 layers of red shades in order to get the red color really intense and vibrant. So don't be afraid to layer your colors on top of each other. And if you're going for a nice red shade and you're having trouble getting there, just kind of plan in the back of your mind, okay, I'm going to have to do a few layers of this, and be very patient. Sometimes watercoloring is just more of a waiting game and varying between those colors. So now I'm bringing in some Payne's Gray. I really love Payne's Gray because it has a very neutral, almost black gray color, but then it also has a little bit of a blue tone, and I think it looks really, really cool as a background. So I'm being very organic with this. I don't want it to be super precise, but I am wetting each area before I add the Payne's Gray. And I'm just going to drop it in, kind of the same technique that I did on the flowers, letting it drop in and then coming back and kind of spreading that color out and trying to get a variation in shades. So after I had all of that painting done, including the interior of the flower image, I just hit that with my heat tool until everything was dry. You could definitely let this air dry, but I was impatient and ready to move on. So I created my card base out of some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, cut to 10 inches wide by 7 inches tall. And then I took my Score Pal, or my Score Buddy, and I scored that at 5 inches so that the finished folded size is 5 by 7. On the back of the watercolor piece, I put some Tombow Extreme adhesive, which is super, super sticky. And then I pressed it down onto the front of my card base. And that's going to finish the card. I decided not to put a greeting on it. Sometimes I like to have these cards that have no greeting at all so that I can use them for whatever occasion that I want. So now I'm going to use a red A7 envelope from Paper Source. And I've got some vintage stamps up there at the top. And then I have a set of fine tip pearlescent metallic watercolors. And I'm just using a small Pentel Aquash brush to write my recipient's address. Now, Nancy gave me permission to use her address, so thank you so much, Nancy. And if you would like to have your address considered for future mail art, whether it's in a video or over at my Instagram, make sure you click on the link down in the video description to enter my monthly giveaways. At the end of that giveaway form, you can select the option to have your address considered for mail art. Just know that if it is chosen for mail art, it will be shown online. Your address will be out there. I just want to give you a heads up that that's what's happening. So I'm using this nice gold shade, which matches the gold embossing on the card fairly well. I was really surprised how well these golds matched. And I'm just using some brush lettering to write on Nancy's address. Now I noticed I didn't finish the Y's on Nancy and May, and that's because I wanted to have the next line written on there before I went in. Like you notice I had to like really squish that letter Y, and on this one I had a very, very small loop, and I did that on purpose so that I wouldn't have any letters kind of intersecting or causing strange spacing and gapping problems. So I'm going to write on the word apartment, and then I'm going to keep the rest of the address very, very simple, mostly because the most important part, especially when it comes to sorting of the mail, is to make sure that the city, state, and zip code or postal code is very, very legible. So I'm using very simple lettering for this, and going across the bottom. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I think I've heard that if the address is not written on a straight line, like this one is a little bit curved, if it's not written on a straight line, it can't be read by the mail sorting machines. I think that is correct. I'm not entirely sure. So the zip code is on one straight line, so that should be helpful. But if you're worried about any of your mail not getting to its recipient because of not enough postage because it can't go through the sorting machines, you can just put on an extra stamp. Usually about 20 cents will cover it, and that'll make sure that it goes through the mail even if it's non-machinable. So putting my address on the back, and this is just my mailbox, and this is the one that I use for all of my mail art. And the last thing to do is to actually adhere the postage stamps to the envelope. So I'm going to take a water brush, and the one I was using had a lot of gold paint in it, so I switched to a different one from Altenew. But basically, I'm just getting the back of each of these stamps wet with water, and that activates the adhesive, and then I'm pressing them down onto my envelope. So that pretty much finishes up the card and envelope for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. All the supplies that I used on the card and envelope are listed down below in the video description with links to online stores. Shop through those links if you can. That helps support my YouTube channel and my blog, and I greatly appreciate you guys doing that. Thanks so much for watching, and I've actually got 3 more mail art videos for you to check out if you want to see some additional inspiration on how to decorate your envelopes that you're putting your cards in. So you can click on any of those and watch those right now. Thanks so much for watching today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up on this video. I will see you guys very soon.